Okay. Hello, and why can't I get that first hello right? Hello, and welcome to another video. I think I just spit. I really don't. It was super fun. We went to we went. Bleh. Oh, this is too fragmented. Do I need to start again? Fuck. Hello and welcome to another video. My name is Heather, and as always, I'm reading with a vengeance, and I hope you are too. How is everybody doing? It's been a hot minute. I haven't recorded in well over a month, and I've been burning to, and just June was incredibly busy, and then I had equipment issues and blah, 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 blah. So June was super busy. I mean, I hope everybody is having a wonderful summer. So far, so good with us. Let's see, first things first. I can't remember if I brought this up in the last video, but we decided not to sell our house. We decided not to move. The things that we thought we were unhappy about, we weren't really. And we just kind of weighed the pros and cons, and it just made so much more sense to just stay where we're at. With that, making the decision to stay in our house, both Jason and I have gotten like a new, renewed enthusiasm and inspiration, basically to be house proud. And we just started doing projects around the house and out in the yard, and I'm having a great time. I'm doing some painting. I've been buying some furniture, and just making some changes, and it's been super fun. And not to have to go through the stress of selling a house and buying a house and moving. Oh my God. I mean, first world problems, but yuck. I was not looking forward to that. And oh my gosh, Jake says hello. What else? So the beginning of the month, June, my mom came out to visit. She generally likes to visit once a year. She likes to come to me once a year. We didn't really do a whole lot since she has come to visit me here in Savannah before, and we did a lot of touristy things then. It was more about just kind of hanging out and spending time together and just connecting and just being within physical proximity of each other. We read together, we knit together. Other than that, we just sat in the same room together and kind of a lot of times did our own thing, but just having her right next to me and me right next to her, that's really all we need for most of the time. And I really enjoyed it, as always. And then the week after she left, my husband and I left for 5 days to spend in Houston, Texas. And we went because there was a concert there. That was the main reason that we went. My husband is a huge concert goer, and there was a concert called Summer of Loud, and it was an all-day thing because there were 5, 6, maybe 7 bands. It's mostly his music. I don't mind it, but it was a long day, but I mean, I enjoyed it. He liked having me there, and the people watching is spot on. I mean, the music he likes it's like death metal, just hardcore. I don't mind the music. In fact, I enjoy some of the music, but it's the kind of music where the singer screams and there's a word for it. They growl. I think it's growling, which is how they sing the lyrics. And I don't really care for that, but I brought my earplugs plus my noise canceling headphones, and I was able to entertain myself, and it was fine. And like I said, the people watching is top notch. That was the main reason we went to Houston. We enjoy traveling to cities and towns that we've never been in and experiencing them. So we did, of course, other things. We love going to new baseball parks, and so we went and caught an Astros game, which was super fun. We'd never been to Dakin Park, and that was fun. And then we just did some touristy things. If you find yourself going to Houston, one of the things that I would say is absolutely a must-see is the Waugh Bridge Bats. There is a street called Waugh Drive, and there's a bridge that goes over the river. And under this bridge, thousands upon thousands of bats live, and they sleep all day. And then at sunset, they all swoop out and fly out to go hunting for the night. And to watch them leave their nesting area is an incredible experience. I don't know how to explain it. Maybe I'll pop in a video of some of the footage that I got. It was so cool. So that's one of the things that we did. We stayed downtown. It's an incredibly clean, safe area as far as big cities go. It's a very artsy town. There are painted murals all over the city. I'll maybe pop in some pictures of some of the murals that I saw. They're just beautiful, of course. I visited a couple of bookstores. I went to Brazos bookstore, which was super cute, and then Murder by the Book, which was super cute, and both independent bookstores. We went to the Color Factory. If you're unaware of what Color Factory is, it's kind of like Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory for adults, although it is kid friendly. It's a little bit more sciencey, and you get treats in the tour. It's pretty neat. It's hard to explain. Google it. It's super fun. And yeah, so we did that too. Went to a bunch of different restaurants, had some really good food. Yeah, so Houston for 5 days. So just busy, busy, busy. June was busy. So it's nice to kind of relax. The only other news that I will share with you, which I'm super excited about, I put in a request for approval with the HOA to have a little free library. If you've been watching long enough, you know that when I lived in Connecticut, I had my own little free library at our house there, and I absolutely loved having it. It's such a joy. So yeah, I got approved to get a little free library here, and I'm super excited. I want to do something a little bit different instead of just kind of buying the standard structure that you can get on the Little Free Library website. So I'm still working on it, but of course, as that progresses, I will let you guys know how it goes. But I'm just super excited that I'm going to have my own little free library again. So that's all the life update. I hope everybody is doing really well. I am going to start talking about books now because that is why we're here. I'm going to start with the DNFs. I have two for you. The first one is My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. This is the first novel in what is known as the Neapolitan Quartet. So there are 3 other books that follow, I believe, these same characters. Neapolitan because it takes place in Naples, Italy, and it follows 2 young girls, Elena and Lila, and it follows their complex friendship, how they meet when they're very young. It takes place mostly in the 50s. You are dealing with working class families, and really it just kind of follows these 2 girls, how they meet, how they become friends, the dynamics of their friendship, and as they grow together and their different ambitions and somewhat rivalry with each other. I think they meet when they're 6 years old, and this first book is them up until their age 16. I didn't get that far. I found this incredibly dull. I understand this is a slow burn of a story, and sometimes I can do slow burn. With this one, I couldn't. I really need something to get me interested in the characters, and I just didn't find these characters very interesting, or at least they weren't written that way. At least not soon enough for me to carry on with this story, and it wasn't for me. So yeah, I did not finish My Brilliant Friend. I know it's highly rated. I hear the series, I think there's an HBO series, is in like the 3rd or 4th season now, so that's doing well, which is great. Maybe I'll check that out, but this one just didn't grasp my attention. The other DNF I had was The Other Valley by Scott Alexander Howard. This is the arc for it, so it's been on my shelf for a while. I would describe it as sci-fi fantasy, but I guess it is really better known as literary speculative fiction. Oh, it says right here on the back, for fans of David Mitchell, Ruth Ozeki, and Kazuo Ishiguro. So this one follows 16-year-old Odile. She lives in a town. The town where she lives, it's present day, and then the town is repeated to the east and to the west. And I can't remember which one's which, but to the east, say it is the same town, but 20 years in the past. And to the west, it's the same town, but 20 years in the future. And the borders are very heavily guarded, and you have to get approval to go to different timelines, I guess. And it has to be under very specific circumstances. And one day Odile sees the parents of one of her good friends cross the border, and she struggles with, I think, telling or keeping the secret. And again, I didn't get very far. I found this incredibly, I wouldn't say incredibly boring, but it just wasn't for me. It was a little bit too fantastical for me. And Odile didn't capture my attention as much as I would like to follow this kind of fantastical story. So I DNF'd this one. I think what captured my attention about the synopsis was that it's coming of age, and it's more speculative than fantasy, if you will. I had higher hopes than I normally would for this kind of book, but it just didn't do it for me. I just didn't care enough about the characters to hold on for the story. All right, let's start talking about the books I actually did read. First one I'm going to talk to you about is We Used to Live Here by Marcus Cleaver. This is a psychological paranormal horror book, and it's made its rounds around YouTube. I think it's very popular. I think it's pretty well rated as well, and I had high hopes for this one. So this one is about Eve and Charlie, two young women in a relationship, and they buy a fixer-upper house. One day, a family, a man and a woman, and I want to say 2, maybe 3 children, show up on their doorstep saying that they are passing through town, traveling through town, and wanted to stop by because they used to live in the house. I think it was the father's childhood home, but wanted to just kind of look inside the house for nostalgic purposes, to kind of reminisce about his childhood. What was supposed to be just kind of a 15-minute tour ends up with this family kind of staying indefinitely, and their behavior gets progressively stranger, and things start happening around the house that is unusual and unexplained. And it starts to have an effect on Eve, who already is dealing with anxiety. And she starts to question her sanity. She starts to question her own reality. And I listened to this. I thought it was well narrated, but I feel like I might have had a better experience with it if I read the physical copy, because the narrative goes back and forth between Eve's perspective and other types of media, like newspaper clippings and online conspiracy theories. And maybe this is by design, like what is real and what's in Eve's imagination. I felt the story was a little bit disjointed, and that might have been by design as well. The writing style and what was going on in the story might have been structured to make the reader feel a little bit off kilter. And I certainly did, but I felt like, considering all the hype around a book, specifically a horror book, I wanted to be more scared. I wanted to be more creeped out, and I just wasn't. In fact, I was more annoyed, and this happens quite frequently, the way certain characters are written in some stories. I am very annoyed when characters are easily manipulated to give up their own personal boundaries. Instead of just saying, no, it's not okay for you to come inside my house, maybe call ahead next time or something. There were things that this family they insinuate themselves in in Eve and Charlie's home and then in their lives in a way that I just found kind of annoying. So there's that. Considering all the hype surrounding this book, I was disappointed in this one. So this one didn't work terribly well for me. So let's talk about a book I actually did enjoy. And the next one I want to talk to you about is Lenny Marks Gets Away with Murder by Karen Maine. This is a debut novel, and I listened to this one as well, and I really enjoyed this one. So this one follows, of course, Lenny Marks. She is a young woman who lives a solitary life. She doesn't really have many connections with people, and she is a creature of habit. She has her routine. She does certain things every single day at a particular time in a particular way, and she is happy that way. And then she gets a letter in the mail that is from the probation board or parole board. And this letter kind of works as a catalyst to switch up Lenny's life. This letter forces Lenny to kind of confront buried secrets and memories in Lenny's life, specifically her traumatic childhood that is related to the disappearance of her mother and stepfather. So initially, Lenny, who is very averse to change, she tries to ignore the letter, but finds that she's unable to because, it's a bell that she can't unring. And as time passes, these suppressed memories are coming to the surface and she is forced to think about them. And in doing this, she starts to make connections with the people around her that are very unlikely. There's the grocer, there's the elderly neighbor, and it's these connections that is really the heart and soul of the story that I found really, really enjoyable. There is a little bit of a mystery. It's not, I don't want to spoil anything, but if you go into this looking for a cozy murder mystery, you might be disappointed because this one goes just a little bit deeper. It's not necessarily a mystery per se, at least not a murder mystery. And this one deals with themes of trauma and resilience and the long-lasting effects of things that happen in our childhood, found family. This one reminded me a lot of Eleanor Oliphant, which I also really enjoyed. If you like that book, you will enjoy this one as well. I laughed out loud in some places. I might have gotten choked up in some places. So it's like equal parts heartbreaking and heartwarming. This one was a really lovely surprise. I very much enjoyed it and I would recommend it to you. So the next book I want to talk to you about is one that I didn't have as good a time with as Lenny Marks. And not only that, I didn't have as good a time with it as so many people are having with this book. And the book I'm talking about is When the Cranes Fly South by Lisa Ridson. And this is translated from the Swedish by Alice Menzies. This is the ARC. When does this come out? This one comes out in August. And people are loving this book. And let's talk about it. This one follows Bo. He is an elderly Swedish man living in a small Swedish town. He lives by himself with his dog, Sixten, and he is at the end of his life, but he is still holding on to his independence. And his son, Hans, is trying to get Bo to go live in a hospice center or a senior home or assisted living. And he wants to start that process by adopting Bo's dog out, taking Bo's dog Sixten away from him, which, I mean, I can't even imagine doing that to somebody. So I went into this book knowing that that was going to be upsetting for me, but I also went into this book wanting the dynamic of the relationship between human and dog, because I always enjoy that. And if you have a dog, you know. So you're reading about Bo, and he is having some struggles. I mean, I don't think it says exactly how old he is, but you can tell he's facing the end of his life. And he has a hard time getting around. He spends a lot of time in the day bed. They call it a day bed. But he does try to walk Sixten, and he has a nurse that comes and helps him, makes his meals, and walks Sixten if Bo is unable to. So Bo is really trying to hold on to his dignity and independence. And meanwhile, and this is from Bo's perspective, and meanwhile you are kind of learning about Bo's past, his troubled relationship with his own father, and how he is struggling to relate to his own son, and how angry he is at what Hans is trying to do. So anyways, that's the gist of the book. It took me forever to read this, and it's only just over 300 pages. I didn't find myself compelled to read it every night. To be fair, I think if it wasn't for Sixten, I would have DNF'd this book. It just was, it was a little repetitive and sad and depressing. And also there was a couple of things that, and this was a me thing, although I don't think anybody would enjoy this. There were multiple references to how Bo was having a hard time with the phlegm in his throat. And maybe once, to give you an idea of, you know, what it's like to be older and have those issues, just once would have been enough. More than once, it was just grossing me out. So for the most part, this book explores loss, grief, love, family, and really just kind of facing the end of your life and wanting to be able to do so peacefully. I get that, but I just found it a little bit more depressing than moving. To be fair, I did get choked up at the end. If memory serves, it was about the dog. So, yeah, this didn't work for me just because I just wanted more about the dog, and at the very least, Bo's relationship with the dog. I mean, you could tell that Bo really, really loves the dog, but there was just less of that than there was of resentment towards his son. Yeah, this one didn't work for me. The next book was an absolute delight, and it is a children's picture book. It's called Mel Fell by Corey R. Tabor. I found out about this book from the lovely Gloria Z. Thompson. You may follow her Booktube channel. She's lovely, and she probably mentioned this book well over a year ago, and she loved it. And so I added it to my list, and I was at the library the other day, and they just happened to have it. It is just a cute little story about this family of kingfishers that live in the tree, and one of the young kingfishers decides to test out his flying skills, and it just tells what happens to him, and it's just cute. It's short. You know, it took me 5 minutes to read. The illustrations are adorable as he is plunging down towards the earth in his plight of flight. So just super, super cute. If you like a good picture book every once in a while, I would recommend Mel Fell. Absolutely adorable. Next book I want to talk to you about is The Road to Tender Hearts by Annie Hartnett. I was very excited to hear about this book coming out. I want to say, I read the ARC, but I want to say it's been published already. I feel like it came out in April. I was super excited about this one because I really enjoyed Unlikely Animals, very much so. So this one follows PJ Halliday, who is a man, I want to say he's in his mid-50s, I think. Actually, he is 63 years old. I just looked at my notes. He's 63 years old. He's a lottery winner, and he's divorced, but he has a good relationship with his ex-wife, who is the mother of his children, and her new husband. In fact, they are neighbors, and PJ goes over there for breakfast and coffee all the time. It's actually very strange, but they're very supportive of PJ. PJ has suffered significant loss in his life. One of his daughters died tragically and unexpectedly, and he is still dealing with that loss. Then he also finds an obituary of a man I think he was in high school with. They were high school rivals, and he married PJ's high school crush. And so PJ decides to go on a cross-country trip to try to make it work again with his high school crush because she's newly widowed. But before he can embark on his adventure, he abruptly finds himself the guardian of his estranged brother's grandchildren, young children, like 10-ish, a boy and a girl. These kids have become orphans in a very tragic way. PJ is their only living relative, and so he's been named guardian. PJ's kids are, or at least his surviving daughter is an adult, and he's estranged with her as well. And so all of a sudden, the 63-year-old man who is kind of reeling from all kinds of loss in his life, and he finds himself on a road trip with these two young kids. And then his adult daughter, under circumstances, she joins the road trip. And then there's also a cat named Pancakes, who becomes a part of this fun road trip. And Pancakes has an uncanny ability to predict death. That's kind of the crux of this story, this antics of this journey cross country for PJ as he is still dealing with the death of one of his daughters. So this whole unlikely relationships and unlikely people kind of put together in circumstances, it very much smacks of Annie Hartnett. I did enjoy this story. We have themes of loss and grief and forgiveness and the search for love and connection, and how tragedy can put us on very unexpected paths and not necessarily bad ones, and how fractured relationships can heal through shared experiences. And Annie Hartnett writes all of these themes beautifully. The problem I had with this particular story is that, you know, Annie Hartnett does quirky characters. She does them very well, and I love quirky characters. I felt that the quirk level was a little too high, and the serious themes, the things that happened in this story, were a little too dark for that level of quirkiness. There's a lot of really dark things that happen in this story. I'm usually not a trigger warning person, but check your trigger warnings for this one. There's not a whole lot that actually happens on the page, at least not as much that could have happened, but you know the things that happen, and they're dark. And to have such whimsical quirkiness in the characters and the other stuff that's going on, I felt like they didn't go together. I think there's a fine line that you have to walk to be able to make a certain level of quirkiness and serious themes to work together, and this one was a little off balance. And so that kind of left kind of not a great feeling for me. I wouldn't go so far as to say a bad taste in my mouth. I just didn't like that part of this particular book. But I will continue to read Annie Hartnett because I love the way she writes her characters. I felt like all the characters were very well developed, very well written. I liked the story. I liked the whole road trip scenario, and I liked the dynamic of this 60-something-year-old man put in a car with his moody and estranged adult daughter and these two kids who have dealt with unimaginable trauma and are still able to be children, and how that affects PJ. So there was a lot that I really enjoyed about this book, but I didn't like it as much as I liked Unlikely Animals. I still have Rabbit Cake to read, and I'm very much looking forward to reading that. Yeah, this one was kind of a disappointment just because I had such high hopes for it, so I did that to myself. If you like Annie Hartnett, I'd recommend it. It's very well written. Just be warned about the things that I'm warning you about. Okay, the next book I want to talk to you about is Saint of the Narrow Street. This is by William Boyle. This one had vibes for me of Babs Dion, and you know how much I love Babs Dion. This is The Ark. It's already been published. It was published in February. This one takes place in Brooklyn, and it opens up in the summer of 1986, and you're following two sisters, Risa and Julia. And they're very close. They love each other very much. They live in this working class area of Brooklyn. Risa is married to Sav, who is a shipbird. And Risa has a young son, Fab, who's a baby as the story opens. And Sav comes home one night and he goes too far with his abusive nature of Risa, and in self-defense, Risa kills him. She doesn't mean to kill him, but she's defending herself and her baby, and she kills him. And her sister Julia and Sav's childhood friend Chooch, who, as they've gotten to be adults, Chooch understands what a shitbird Sav is, and he is more protective and more friendly with Risa, who, and I think he has a child, like a secret crush on her. Anyways, the three of them decide to bury Sav's body and basically just tell the neighborhood that he ran off, which would be exactly what he would do. You're following them over the next 18 years as Fab grows up, and as Sav's brother starts to question, what happened, and the weight of keeping this secret over many, many years, and then Fab wanting to know about his father and questioning, why he would leave him, and things start to unravel a little bit. So as I mentioned, this one, the premise of it, I was very, very interested in. It very much had vibes of Noble Death of Babs Dion, which I absolutely loved, but that only set me up for disappointment. As far as atmosphere goes, unless you're from Brooklyn, the only atmosphere you get is really just kind of bleak poverty. So I felt like the town that they lived in was just some nameless town. I expected like there to be a twist somewhere, and there wasn't. It was just, this is kind of a character-driven story about what happens when you hold on to a secret this big for so long, and what it does to your relationships with the other people that are helping you keep the secret, and what happens when the secret comes out. This deals with the long-lasting effects of violence. But as far as the story goes, everything that happens really in the story happens in the first 100 pages, maybe 75. Nothing really else happens, in my opinion, other than just being in the head of these characters and what they did and holding on to that secret and what it does to them psychologically. So I was hoping for a little bit more of an unraveling of, the secret coming out in the town. And really, when the secret comes out, it's because Risa tells her son she can't keep it anymore. And I expected more to happen when the secret came out and how it comes out. I didn't expect Risa to just tell. I expected it to come out in a little bit more complex way. Yeah, my expectations were way, way too high for this one, and it just led me for disappointment. It's an okay story if you really appreciate a character-driven novel, which sometimes I do, but I do want a little bit more. Yeah, and with the cover, I expected there to be a little bit more 80s vibes, and there just wasn't. So anyways, it's okay. I thought it was okay. All right, so the last two books that I'm going to talk to you about are books that I really, really enjoyed. The first one is Margo's Got Money Troubles by Rufi Thorpe. This one follows, of course, Margo. She is 19 years old, and she's kind of not really going anywhere, but she is going to college. She ends up having an affair with one of her college professors, and she gets pregnant. Of course, the college professor, who is married, decides he doesn't want to have anything to do with her or the baby anymore, and Margo decides that she wants to keep the baby. She goes through some struggles with making that decision, but she ultimately decides to keep the baby, who she names Bodhi. And so she finds herself 20 years old with a new baby and single. Not a whole lot of prospects as far as taking care of herself. And so she turns to OnlyFans to try to make a living. And this story follows her in her struggles into what it is to be an online sex worker and to raise a child, and the complexities of relationships. She's got a strained and strange relationship with her mom. She has got a initially estranged relationship with her father, who is a retired WWF super famous, I guess, wrestler. And he comes to live with her, and she agrees because she needs childcare. And so he comes to live with her, and they are reconnecting, and he is helping her, kind of drawing from his experience as a wrestler and how to create your persona and use that to your advantage in a business sense for her OnlyFans account. So this one, you're dealing with family relationships and the complexities that they entail, the ethical dilemmas of sex work. And we follow Margo as she is dealing with being a mother and also having a controversial career and living in a world with complex moral dilemmas. And we follow her as she handles things with resilience and wisdom, all on this path of self-discovery and reconnecting with her father. She deals with a custody battle because Professor Shipbird comes back into her life and decides he wants a part in Bodhi's life. And then, of course, when he finds out what she does for a living, there's that whole drama. Even though there are so many differences between the character of Margo and myself, I found her completely relatable, likable. She is so funny. Her father, Jinx, hilarious. There were antics and there were serious scenes and serious themes coupled with humor. I just thought this was brilliantly written, and it's such a unique story. I thought I really, really enjoyed this, and I'm so excited because if I didn't mention it before, I listened to this, and it is narrated by Elle Fanning. And it just turns out that she is going to be portraying Margo in the adaptation. I think Hulu is doing a series. I would definitely recommend this book. It was just a really enjoyable read. And the last book I want to talk to you about is Broken Country by Claire Leslie Hall. This one, of course, is a Reese Book Club book, getting lots of talk on YouTube, and is very highly rated. And I'm here to tell you that the hype is real and it is warranted. This book was really, really good. So this one takes place in the English countryside, and you're following Beth, and she and her husband Frank run a farm. Beth is a good woman, and Beth loves her husband Frank, and Frank adores Beth. He is steadfast. He keeps her grounded. One day, Frank, I want to say, was it Frank or maybe Beth's brother-in-law, is forced to shoot a dog on their property who's been going after their sheep. And it turns out this dog belongs to Gabriel, who comes over and looking for his dog with his young son Leo, and finds that it's been shot. And Gabriel is from Beth's past. She and Gabriel were young lovers as teenagers, and Gabriel and his son Leo have come back to town after many, many years away. And so Beth, for reasons, finds herself drawn into Gabriel's world, and she starts to get to know Gabriel's son Leo, and she starts to revisit her feelings, as even though she's very, very dedicated to her marriage and to Frank, she finds herself kind of being pulled back into the woman she once was. And part of that has to do with Beth still dealing with the death of her young son, her and Frank's young son. The narrative of this story, you're going back and forth in time. You are going back for when Beth and Gabriel meet and fall in love and their relationship and what happens. And it's also kind of going back and forth before and after the death of Beth and Frank's son and what happened to him. And then there's another mysterious death in present time, and that's kind of unraveling, and you're finding out who that is and what happened to that person and why. A lot of moving parts with this story, and I listened to this, and it was very well narrated, and the story is very well structured so that you're not like you're asking questions about what's going on, but it is written in a way where it is carrying you along as those questions are answered bit by bit. These characters are very well developed. You have conflicting feelings about different characters. Like for instance, I was really, really mad at Beth for some of the things that she did until I found out why she did them. And it really manipulates your feelings in the best possible way in only a really well written story can. Because that mysterious death, there's like a courtroom drama that takes place. You are dealing with the dynamics of this love triangle. This one makes you think about, is it possible to love two people at the same time in equal measure and in an equal way? Oh, and there's also a twist that was pretty enjoyable. That's all I'll say about that. Yes, Broken Country deserves all of the hype that it's getting. This is a very well-written book. This is one of those authors that I'm going to watch out for. If you haven't read this book yet and you feel like there's just too much hype, that it's probably too good to be true, I'm here to tell you, while I have fallen victim to that mentality before, hopping on that bandwagon and then finding myself disappointed, this one deserves all of the praise that it's getting right now. I absolutely love this book and would highly recommend. So that is it. Those are the books that I have time to talk about today. Those are not all the books that I've read recently, but that's all I have time for today. But I did want to catch you up on at least some of the books that I've read recently. What books have you guys been reading that I need to know about? Please pop some recommendations down in the doodly-doo, or you could just say hi. I am always so very grateful that you are here and watching. If you liked what you saw today, please do a girl a favor and click that like button and subscribe. That would be greatly appreciated. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.